Good afternoon. I want to continue our discussion on the first sermon. I think I have spoken enough on that sermon. I simply want to proceed with some remarks on this first sermon. First of all, I must mention that Buddha expounded this discourse, delivered discourse from his own experience. That is extremely important to remember. He did not come up with any particular theory learned from somebody. And it proved to be true, the theory, when it was put into practice, the result was immediate. Why? As soon as he delivered the sermon, 1 of the 5 attend the stream entry. That means the system works. As Nixon said, or Congress said at that time. System works. What he discovered, expounded, explained, taught, works. And proof was right there. And that is why somebody asked me a question just a few minutes ago, why the Buddha is called Tathagata? Many people give many different interpretations on their own, according to maybe their own convictions. But the true meaning of Tathagata is exactly that what he spoke is the truth, immutable, unchangeable, and unalterable. From the day he attained enlightenment till he passed away, in between whatever he taught is the truth. One who spoke the truth is called Tathagata. Tata means the truth. The one who spoke the truth is Tathagata. He is an embodiment of truth. In other words, one who is an embodiment of truth is called Tathagata. Some people say, since he came following previous Buddhas, he was Tathagata. Since he lived just like previous Buddha, he was Tathagata. Since he passed away, just like previous Buddhas, he was Tathagata. They have peripheral meaning. They are peripherally correct, but true, real, deep, core meaning is one who is an embodiment of truth. What he said that time is true now, will be true forever. Therefore, the word Tathagata was not Buddha's own invention. Many other teachers previous to him or contemporary to him used the word Tathagata. But nobody was able to prove what they spoke was the truth. They all spoke about theories. But they could not produce a result right there. And therefore he is called Tathagata. So, it came from his own personal experience. When going through so many difficult periods, testing everything available to him at that time, following every person's instructions, every person's theories, whims and fancies, he followed everything. And finally proved all those things to be false, wrong, incorrect, impracticable, doesn't produce the expected results. When he discovered the method, that proved. Second thing we learn from this discourse is he discarded all authority. Because this is not dependent upon some authority, some dogma. Next thing we found in this discourse is the emphasis of rational understanding. Emphasis of understanding. That is why as soon as Kondanya understood, he said, Yang kinchi samudaya dhammang sabbantang nirodha dhammang. That which is subject to arise is subject to pass away. Next thing he emphasized there is that there is no blind faith. The faith arises from understanding. As soon as Kondanya understood, he firmly established faith, confidence in the Buddha. That instant he attained the stream entry. And reconfirmed his faith in the Buddha. So mere belief and dogma he completely discarded from this discourse. Next thing we discovered is the attachment to any rites and rituals. He discarded. At the very first opening statement he said both extremes should be avoided. One extreme is becoming, is torturing oneself. One begins to torture oneself believing in certain rites and rituals, blindly. Next truth we found out in this discourse, that there is no mediator, no go-between, no agent, because it is directly visible, personally experiential. And this feature we see all alone in his teaching. When we recite Swakhato Bhagavata Dhammo Sandittuko and so forth, this characteristic is very clearly outstanding, that he proved in the first sermon. Next thing in this discourse we clearly saw was the outline of Sila Samadhi Panya. In the Buddha's teaching, these are the three pillars, three cardinal pillars. The entire dispensation is based on Sila, Samadhi, Panya, morality, concentration and wisdom. In the Noble Eightfold Path, these are the three pillars we find. The entire Noble Eightfold Path is divided into these three. Another thing is, this is not theocentric, this is homocentric. This teaching is not theocentric. Man, human being are in the center. Not any divine authority in the center. And the next thing we found in this discourse, the truth that had never been heard before. People have heard all kinds of things. They might have heard conventional truth. But the permanent, eternal truth and truth that is immutable was heard for the first time. And this is the discourse. In this discourse we found something which is akalika. Akalika means unaffected by time. Dhamma is unaffected by time. It was true then and true now, will be true forever. And therefore it is unaffected by time. And this feature also we find in the Buddha's as the characteristics of Dhamma. Then also we find in this discourse proper understanding oneself through analysis, scrutinization and examination. Looking at oneself, understanding oneself is emphasized in this discourse. And the next thing we learn is rational understanding of the first truth leads to the eradication of the cause of that very truth. Suffering, as I mentioned this morning, nothing noble in suffering. It is so painful, how can that be noble? But the truth of suffering is noble. It is true. It is the truth of suffering that is noble, not the suffering itself. Of course, next thing we learn there is that all living beings are subject to that truth. And also we learn the cause of karma is necessarily is the factor for rebirth. When this cause ends, suffering ends. We learn that. And Buddha reiterated several times in his discourses, Paññāvantassāyan dhammo nāyan dhammo dupphaññasa, this Dhamma is for the wise, not for the unwise. And he proved that Kondanya was wise among all this, and therefore he understood Dhamma very quickly. This kind of persons have a name. They are called Ugghatitanya. Ugghatitanya means one who realizes the truth immediately. As soon as one comes in contact with the truth, that person realizes it. That person is called Ugghatitanya. Ugghatita means coming in contact. As soon as a person comes in contact with the truth, that instant the person realizes it in his own person. Another thing we learn in this discourse, in order to realize this fully well, there has to be renunciation. I think I mentioned this word several times. People are scared of the word renunciation. Friends, we have to sacrifice our greed, hatred and delusion. Don't you like to sacrifice that? Renounce that. That's all you have to renounce. Renounce greed, renounce hatred, renounce delusion. Without renouncing this is the real renunciation. Renunciation of greed, hatred and delusion. Sooner or later, we have to renounce it. And supreme enlightenment is possible only when these three roots are totally, completely uprooted from our mind. That is why Buddha said, Asesa viraga nirodha. Tassayeva tannaya asesa viraga nirodha. I mentioned it this morning. Asesa viraga nirodha means we should not keep one iota behind to use some at an emergency. If you keep little bit of greed to use in an emergency, just like when you write your last will, you don't want to write everything. You have to keep something until you live for yourself, just in case. That kind of saving for emergency also must be given up. That means greed must be given up without leaving an iota with us, in order to liberate ourselves completely, totally from suffering. This also showed by destroying one enemy, we can destroy the whole army. What is the enemy? Greed. When you destroy that, everything will be crumbled. And where can we find this Noble Eightfold Path? Where can we find it? We can find it only within ourselves. We don't find it anywhere else. Not in books, not in bookshops or supermarket. So Buddha gave a very succinct, very indisputable truth of our growth, decay, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair. That cause is what? Birth. Since we are born, all the other things come along with that. So we have to stop birth. Birth can be stopped only when we remove the cause of birth, that is greed, attachment, clinging, craving. Now, having said that, we have few minutes. My retreat coordinator warned me and actually suggested me that we must have some time for discussion, because this morning also I took up the entire time in talking, and now it is time. This time we should have some time to discuss. You may turn to page 32 of Vandana book. That sutta we are going to discuss this afternoon is called Anattalakkhana Sutta. Anattalakkhana is characteristics of selflessness. I think our Bhavana monastics have memorized this discourse, I believe, because we recite it very, very often. If you have not memorized, it is time for us to start memorizing it, because this is very, very important discourse, easy to remember. So remember, Buddha gave the first sermon and discussed the sermon for almost a month with these monks, repeating it again and again and again, until one attained stream entry, that is Venerable Konnanya. Buddha did not want to leave them without making them full arahants. He was driving point home. Next he thought of giving this sermon. This sermon he don't learn from anybody. None of these sermons, these 84,000 sermons, recorded 18,000 sermons. Conventional belief is 84,000 talks or aspects of the Dhamma. Not one thing he learned from anybody. See the supreme wisdom, enlightenment. Can you come up with something like that to go on for 45 years? His storage of information was so rich. When somebody asked a question, instantly he gave an answer. If he felt answer needs to be expanded, he would give a long discourse, depending on one single question. So this time, he thought, now this is the time I must teach these bhikkhus something very profound, so that they all will attain full enlightenment. And this is a very difficult thing to do, because they had never heard this. All they heard all this time was soul, 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 self, self, Atman, Atman, Atman. To come up very, boldly at once, it is just like opening a can of worms, throwing stones at the hornet's nest, because everybody was ready to attack him. Everybody was believing in soul or self. To come up with this kind of discourse, to deny all these beliefs, Buddha must have been really wonderful lion. This is called lion roar. He rode lion roar among these all opponents. He's not a meek person. Did not want to hide the truth. He wanted to say it right away. He said, then the Buddha addressed the group of 5 monks. Monks, straight away he said, addressing monks, he said, monks, form is not self. Because there were 20 different ways of dealing with the 5 aggregates. And all the 20 different ways were dealing with soul or self. So he straight away hit the nail right on the right spot. He said, form is not self. If form were self, then form would not be prone to afflictions. And it would be possible to say, let my form be thus, let my form not be thus. Because form is not self, form is prone to affliction, and it is not possible to say, let my form be thus, let my form not be thus. Now, who says, let my form be thus, let my form not be thus? Is there an owner of form? No. The Pali says, Rupam bhikke anatta, rupam chidam bhikke atta bhavisya, naidam rupam abhada sangatiti. Labhyeta cha rupe evang me rupam hotu, evang me rupam mahositi. The form, if the form were self, the form should be able to tell the form, let my form be thus, let my form not be thus. Form should be able to tell the form itself. It is the form that thinks the form is its own possession, not a person. We are dealing with non-personal phenomenon. In this phenomenon, we say our body talks to itself. The body has intelligence. when something happens to the body knows it. For instance, we know when there is a cut, and if the germs invade the body, then body remembers, body knows exactly what to do. It generates more white cells, arrest the area, and start attacking the invading cells, invading germs, and destroy. Do we tell the body to do that? We don't tell the body to do that. Body knows it. Similarly, this body should be able to tell itself, let my body be such and such. There is no behind the body to tell, let my body be such and such. Because Buddha wanted to prove this is a phenomenon, Dhamma. Because form is not self, form is prone to affliction. When form is falling sick, form cannot tell the body, let me not fall sick. Because form doesn't have self to do that. Monks, feeling is not self. Same thing goes with the feeling. If feeling was self, then feeling would not be prone to afflictions, and it would be possible to say, let my feeling be thus, let my feeling not be thus. Because if we assume that we can tell the feeling, not for feeling to be such and such, where the notion of self comes in. If there is, suppose there is a self, and self is sitting there, and whether the self is sitting there or not, we should be able to tell the feeling to do something. We are not directly dealing with the self. But if there is a self in the feeling, then the feeling should be able, because feeling is identical. Vedana attato samunupassati. Vedana attato samunupassati. In 20 types of dealing with self, Buddha said that there were people who believed Rupang attato samunupassati. They believe the form is identical with self. If the form is identical with self, then the form and self are the same. So, the form should tell the self to do such and such. Or self should be able to tell the form to do such and such, because both are identical. Similarly, feeling, also if feeling is identical with the self, then feeling should be able to tell the feeling to do such and such, or self should be able to tell the feeling to do such and such. Monk's perception is not self. Let me finish this first one. Second one, because self is not self, self is prone to affliction, and it is not possible to say, let my feeling be thus, let my feeling not be thus. Monk's perception is not self. That the same thing goes with perception, same thing goes with formations and consciousness on the next page. So this is the first premise of his argument, first premise. Second, Buddha asked bhikkhus, what do you think, monks? Is form permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is that which is impermanent unsatisfactory or satisfactory? Unsatisfactory, Venerable Sir. This is the third. Second is impermanent, third is unsatisfactory. Then he comes to the conclusion. Then he asks, is it correct to consider that which is impermanent, unsatisfactory, and of the nature of changing as this is mine, this am I, this is myself? So, these three are called Tanha, Mana, Ditti. To represent Tanha, Mana, Ditti, we have these three forms. Tanha means this is mine. Tanha means craving, desire. What is the nature of desire? Possessing, holding, clinging, grasping, saying, this is mine. Second is conceit, mana. The Pali word mana is used for measuring. To measure something, use the word, the agent we use to measure something is called mana. So, when we say, this I am, or this am I, then I measure that is you, that is she, that is he, and so forth. And then we have other divisions also, higher, medium and superior, higher, medium and superior, medium and inferior, and so forth. And this is myself, that is what we call ditti, wrong view. So these are the three notions that are built around the notion of permanent self. We say, this is mine, this I am, this is my self. So, that goes for all the five aggregates. So Buddha said, therefore, the form is not self. Feeling is not self. Perception is not self. Volitional formations are not self. Consciousness is not self. When we say that, when Buddha said that, somebody can come up and ask, then what is the self? If the form is not self, feeling is not self, perception is not self, volitional formations is not self, and consciousness is not self. Then somebody can ask, if all these are not self, then what is the self? Somebody then can come up, well, they can come up with all kind of words, and they have to point out something beside, other than these five aggregates. But is there anything other than these five aggregates for us? That's all we have. If none of these five aggregates is not self, and five aggregates are all we have, then what are we talking about? There is very beautiful discussion between Khemaka, Venerable Khemaka in Samyutta Nikaya. Venerable Khemaka was a very elderly monk. One day he was very sick, and some monks asked him how he was and so forth. There was a conversation between him and few other monks, and they asked whether he was an arahant. He said no. Then again they asked, if you are not arahants, are you attached to any of your aggregates? He said no. Do you consider any of your aggregates self? He said no. Then you must be an arahant, they said. He said, I am not arahant, but I don't consider any of my aggregates is self. But friends, I cannot give up this notion of I am. I cannot give up. I am. It lingers in my mind. This the notion of I am will not vanish from our mind until we attain full enlightenment. Because even an anagami, one who has attained the third level of enlightenment, still has what is called mana. Mana. That is called asmi mana. I conceit. I conceit. The notion of I am exists in the mind of one who has attained the third level of enlightenment. Therefore, it is not very easy to get rid of. But Venerable Khemaka said to this group of monks very affirmatively that he did not believe that he has a self. He does not believe. But the notion of self, so notion of I am still continue to linger in his mind. Then they asked, do you think your form is yourself? He said, no. Feeling? No. Perception? No. Volitional formations? No. Consciousness? Then what do you think as I am? So he could not convince them. He gave them a simile. He said, suppose there is a flower. Is the scent, sweet smell of the flower, is it in its petal or in its, what do you call that, center piece which has a nectar? Stamen? Yeah, pistil, yes. If it is pistil, he said no. If the scent is on stalks, no. If the scent is on leaves, no. Then where is the scent of the flower? Nobody could answer. So he said, similarly, although I don't consider any of these aggregates as my self, I still feel the notion of I am. Then he gave another simile. Suppose you give your clothes to laundryman. He washes your clothes and brings back. when he brings back, still the detergent he used for washing your clothes, the smell of the detergent still there. As we all know, when you put some detergent, put in the laundry machine, when it comes out, there is a smell of detergent. You may not like it. What would you do? He said, then he himself gave the answers. You put in a drawer and put some camphor. And after some times, that smell of detergents will disappear. When you take the clothes out, camphor smell is there. Then how can you get rid of that? You take it out and hang it on clothesline outside. When wind blows back and forth here and there for a few hours, that smell will disappear. Similarly, this notion of I conceit continues to exist until you attain full enlightenment. Only then that notion will disappear. Up to that point, it will remain in your mind. So it is not very easy to get rid of this notion. But in any of these five aggregates, we never find anything called permanent self, unchanging, eternal, and so forth. If somebody were to ask what is the self, then person has to go through, person has to come up with the notion that there is something permanent, eternal, immutable, and so forth. The problem, difficulty in that is, if there is Buddha discussed these things in many places, but in this particular discourse he used these three steps. First he said, everything is impermanent. Second he said, everything is unsatisfactory. Therefore, that which is impermanent, unsatisfactory, cannot be considered to be self in any form. Because things do not happen according to our belief. Now, it is mere notion deeply rooted in our mind from time immemorial, not understanding the dependent arising or law of dependent origination. So he went on explaining, what is form after all? What is form? Form is made up of four elements, four derived elements. When each of these elements taken separately and analyzed to the finest analyzable point, like maybe quark, even that is, you cannot see it with your naked eyes. Even with the powerful microscope, you cannot see quark. It is just maybe a waves. Can you find self even in that state when you analyze the form, the earth element? The earth element is the solidness or solidity of this body, solid part. So it is analyzed in many places. We will read them later on. In other suttas that we are going to discuss. In the solid part of the body we cannot find self. Solid part are the part belonging to earth element. In the liquid parts, water element, we cannot find self, because even if we analyze liquid part, water element, to the finest analyzable state, we cannot find self. Something permanent. Similarly, air element, heat element, we don't find anything like that. This body form is made up of these four elements. If the self is not found in any of these elements, how can you find it in the cluster of these four together? When you do not find one in a part, when parts put together, how can you find it? How can you find something which was not in the part, in the combination of parts? So, and they arise, the form arises dependent upon these elements. Feeling arises. Feeling is not something static that you can catch and show somebody, this is feeling. Or you cannot lock the feeling into a cupboard and keep it for sometimes to use at any time you want. Perception also is like that. You cannot store perception somewhere. It doesn't like that. It doesn't exist like that. Volitional formations is not something you can find somewhere. And consciousness is not something you can find, although some people believe that there is a storehouse of consciousness. Ale viññāna. Ale means house, viññāna means consciousness. There is a house, storage, to lock the consciousness to take something whenever you need. In the Buddha's teaching we never find that. Form arises dependent on these elements. Feeling arises dependent on contact and so forth through our senses, sensory objects, consciousness. When these three, combination of these three is called contact. So contact is not something that exists by itself. Even the contact arises dependent on these senses. And the feeling arises from that contact. When there is no contact of eye, visual object and consciousness, when these don't come together, no contact. When there is no contact, there is no feeling. Similarly, recognition, identifying something, what you call perception, does not exist without objects, such as eyes, visual objects, contact and feeling. When these don't come together, there is no perception. Similarly, volitional formations and consciousness. Consciousness also exists when conditions come together, like mentality and materiality coming together. Consciousness can arise. So, volitional formations arises, consciousness can arise after that. So, all these arise dependent upon various other factors. And therefore, none of them can be considered to be permanent entity. Nothing is permanent. They arise and they pass away. When something arises and passes away, that particular thing cannot be called a self, because the notion of self, definition of self, is something permanent, eternal, everlasting, immutable, existing through eternity. That definition we can find in Sabbasava Sutta. When we come to Sabbasava Sutta, we will discuss that. So friends, according to my retreat coordinator's instructions, I should stop here now for you to ask me some questions and have a little discussion. That's all I can do this afternoon. Yeah, now 2 questions. What is yours?
Some people might think feeling is body sense, and some people might think feeling is emotions, rather than the way the mind is drawn to something or pushes something away or ignores something, positive, negative, or neutral. Could you expand on the definition of feeling?
The word feeling we use in Western psychology for, as you said, something physical, something mental, and for physical feeling they call sensation. But in Pali tradition or Buddhist terminology, we find only one word, Vedana. Vedana. This is what when she and I were talking about the Pali language. Pali language is very rich word they use to encompass all this sensation as well as feelings. Although since English language is so rich, it has a very rich, powerful vocabulary, so they can distinguish the difference between one kind of things and another, and therefore they give different names for these two kind of experiences, sensations and feelings. But in Pali tradition we use one word for both. There's no difference. However, in 5 kinds of feelings, we have some terms for feelings and sensations. Feelings are somanassa, domanassa, upekka. Sensation, sukha, dukkha, adukkama sukha. Sukha, dukkha, adukkama sukha are sensations. They are physical. Dukkha means suffering, pain. Sukha means happiness. Adukkama sukha is neither happiness nor pain. Somanassa is mental pleasant feeling. Domanassa also is mental unpleasant feeling. And upekka is in between these two, also mental. Here we have actually 6 kind of divisions. 6, sensation or this experience divided into 6. So in Bahuvedaniya Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya, Buddha has shown 108 kinds of feelings or sensation, 108. First we have 3, then we have 6, then we can multiply them by our senses, past, present, future, samisa, niramisa, that is sense pleasure oriented and non-sense pleasure oriented, or pleasure oriented or spiritual oriented sensations and so forth. When we calculate all of them, there comes 108 different kinds of feeling or sensation, which we find in Bahuvedaniya Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya. So primarily 3, then it can go up to 108. You have a question?
Could you address yesterday's question? If there is no self, then who was experiencing suffering?
Actually, I thought I answered the question. But anyway, it's good that you asked it again. in this particular teaching, the question of who is irrelevant, because we are dealing with a phenomenon. When we talk about phenomenon, person, he, who, she, and so forth cannot be applied. If there is no self, the question should be, how then feeling arises? Or what does involve in feeling? Something like all impersonal, immaterial, phenomenal question. But if we bring who, he, she into this discussion, then we completely spoil the whole thing because it is irrelevant. Buddha would simply reject words like this, saying it is inapplicable.
How to understand if, for example, suffering, attachment brings suffering?
Mm-hmm.
What is the subject of suffering? Is it your feelings?
That's a very good point. When there is no I, who suffers, right? When there is feeling, there is suffering. Now, suffering itself is not experienced by a person, but this is a very difficult thing to say. There's a saying, dukkha matti na dukkhito puma. Suffering exists, but no a person who suffers. Magga matti maggang atti gamako na vijjati. The path is there, but no traveler. Atti nibbuti, no nibbuto puma. Nibbana is there, but not a person in Nibbana. So, that's a riddle. Because we are dealing with phenomenon, Dhamma. In this phenomenon, phenomenal teaching, if we were to bring being a person, we have to explain that also in the same terms. For example, if you were to ask, who is Satta? Satta means being. What is Satta? According to Buddha's explanation given in Samyutta Nikaya, that means one entity, the entity that attached to 5 aggregates is called Satta. It is an entity that clings to form, feeling, perception, volitional formations and consciousness, is the whole entity that clings to it, and the clinging objects all put together is called Satta. Similarly, this changing, interdependent phenomena feels pleasure and pain. This interdependent phenomenon feels pain, pleasure, or neutral feeling. If we use this kind of terms, then we will be consistent with the teaching. However, in conventional sense, we have to say you, me, she, he, it, and so forth. So in conventional sense, there is a sufferer, there is a traveler, there is one who feels, in conventional sense. So we have to understand the truth in these 2 different levels. One is conventional, the other is eternal, ultimate. My first answer was in the ultimate sense, and in order to come down to earth, to our ordinary mundane practical day-to-day level, we have to say I, he, she, you, and so forth. It is very much like, I give you a very good example. Can you see Sunday? Have you ever seen Sunday? Have you seen Sunday? Have you heard Sunday? Saying, I'm Sunday, I'm Sunday, I'm Sunday, I'm Sunday. Have you heard? Have you felt Sunday? Have you touched Sunday? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and so forth? Have you seen longitude? Latitude? International dateline? Have you seen them? Touched them? Experienced them? No. But we use them. We use today, if there is no sun, Buddha said, if there is no sun, can there be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, January, February and so forth? No. In this world, we come up with concepts, ideas, in order to express ourselves, to make each other understand, to keep records and so forth, only for our mundane, day-to-day purposes. But in ultimate sense, there is no Sunday, no Monday, no Tuesday, no January, no February, no December, no international dateline, no longitude, no latitude. You can see in this way, self also is used only in this sense, in order for us to communicate. I am called Bhante Ji. Where is Bhante Ji? You can see this form. Is this form Bhante Ji? No. Is this feeling Bhante Ji? No. Buddha asked the same question when somebody said, does Tathagata exist after death? Does he not exist after death? Does he both exist and non-exist after death? Or neither does exist or no non-exist after death? Then Buddha simply asked him, can you see Tathagata now? They were a little confused and then they got the answer. They came to their senses. They knew that Buddha was going to ask them, is the form Tathagata? Is the feeling Tathagata? And so forth. When you take all these things apart, there is no Tathagata, no Bhante Ji. But in ordinary conversations, in conventional sense, this is a person, male, has a name and robe, a monk and this and that, all designations we put to this entity in order to make communication easy. What is your question?
This you call Satta?
Satta.
What is the common translation of this word?
This comes in Samyutta Nikaya. There is a particular, I think in Khanda Samyutta, the particular place I don't remember now, I can find out if you want. The question was, Satto, Satto, te uchyati Bhante kimpana, Bhante Satto. Somebody asked Buddha, Satto, Satto, being, or being, he said, what do you mean by being? Then he came up with this answer.
Now, my question is, now the Satta, Bhante Ji, if there is no Nibbana, there is no path, there is nothing, and there's no being to, or Satta that realizes this, then why do you teach? What is the purpose of teaching?
Now I must correct your question. I did not say there is no Nibbana. Only thing that is Nibbana. What I said was, there is no person in Nibbana or person going to Nibbana. I think it is Nagarjuna who said in Sanskrit, Nibba nirvanang anupadami nirvanang me bhavishyati ityesang grahasetang upadana mahagrahah. In Sanskrit he said, if somebody says nirvana is mine, I go to nirvana, and then he said, this statement is made by one who has a great delusion, upadana, clinging to some notions. So, we cannot say, my nirvana or I go to nirvana. When there is no I, how can I go to nirvana?
There is no going also.
Yeah?
There is no going also.
Exactly, there is no going, no coming. When you say we go to Nibbana, then Nibbana must be somewhere there. We can walk, take airplane or go rocket and just boom into Nibbana. There is no such place or thing. It is the cessation of this whole process within ourselves. Nibbana. Your Nibbana is right there. Whenever your greed, hatred and delusion totally, completely wiped out, never to return again, you have attained Nibbana.
Now, in that case, does it really matter if we realize, or if we get rid of greed, hatred and delusion, and we attain Nibbana?
Right.
Does that really matter? And if it doesn't matter, then what would be the point of teaching others?
Actually that's a very good question. Why do we teach? We teach in order to get rid of our delusion regarding nirvana. When we get rid of, as I mentioned, we use the word we in conventional sense. But these are all phenomena. But we cannot talk about phenomena when we discuss something. I mean, there's no way to communicate. I cannot say, this aggregate talks to that aggregate, and that aggregate asks this question, and so forth. I cannot say. So you have to use these terms, simple terms. Only for communication purpose we use these terms, but there are these phenomena of that phenomena and this phenomena, which is lodged, lodged in and bound by greed, hatred and ignorance. So if ignorance is completely wiped out, along with that greed will disappear. That instance, that individual or this individual will no longer be there as greedy individual. Body will remain there, movement will be there, activities will be there without greed, hatred and delusion. So the purpose of teaching is to make listeners understand this process.
What would motivate you personally to go out there and teach? What would motivate the Tathagata?
Out of compassion, because these beings, not understanding this reality, suffer. So, in order to eliminate suffering, which also is impermanent, which also arises dependent upon causes and conditions, so Buddha wanted to show them this dependent arising suffering can be removed by following a very systematic method, and then the person will be liberated from suffering. Therefore, out of compassion, these are all mundane things, material, conventional thing. Even compassion is not permanent thing. Even compassion is not eternal. But we have to use this impermanent mundane things to liberate ourselves from suffering. Yes? Okay. Okay. Now you ask three things. What is conventional terms, self, what is eternal self, and what is permanent self. Oh, right? All of them. I say there is no permanent self, no eternal self, but conventional self means the term we used to make communication easy. It is a reflexive sense. Reflexive sense means when I talk about this stick, we say the stick itself. When we say stick itself, we use the word self. So when I use that term, I do not mean that this has a self. But in order to return to itself, I use the word self. Similarly, when I talk referring to me, I say myself. That is conventional self, like talking about Sunday. Although it does not exist, in order to emphasize me, right, to emphasize me, the word self is used in making the expression strong and firm. It doesn't mean that self exists as such. So, conventional self is the self that we use for communication, to make communication easy. That is all we use in the form of self. And other kind of selves we deny, we cannot prove them existing. Although even the conventional self is not something that exists, but we have to use it in order to talk to each other, to make them understand. Yes? Excuse me? Eternal self? No eternal self. The word atta is used in the same conventional sense. Atta. A conventional sense means the self means the word we use to make the communication easy. That kind of usage is so conventional. Because there is a belief that there is something permanent, eternal, unchanging, something. In the Buddha's teaching, there is no anything permanent, eternal, unchanging. And therefore, if somebody says there is permanent self, that is wrong, because nothing permanent. Nothing permanent. Yes, your question?
I often hear an argument that the Buddhism is just one form of nihilism. And my answer to that is that no, there is Nirvana. But when the opponent says, but what is it? And I explain it's basically a cessation of any notion of self or existence. Then the opponent says, that's my point, it's nothing, but it's nihilism, it's annihilation. How do you explain this?
How do I explain nihilism and annihilationism?
In the sense that how is that nihilism is different to Buddhism, that Nirvana is not total annihilation and
Okay. The total annihilation we can use in one sense, total annihilation of greed, hatred and delusion. That is the total annihilation. But the bliss, peace of Nibbana prevails. Then comes the question, as he asked, who experienced that peace? This is where we find it very difficult, when the question, who experienced that peace? This is what is called avedayita sukha. Avedayita sukha means it is inexperiential happiness. Then somebody can ask, if it is not experiential, how can that be happiness? The answer is, that is why it is happiness. If it is experiential, whatever is experiential is subject to change. And therefore, when the Sariputta gave this answer in Samyutta Nikaya, when somebody asked, what is Nibbana? He said, it is peace. Who experienced the peace? He said, nobody experienced peace. It is inexperiential, avedayita sukha. Then he asked, if it is not avedayita sukha, how can that be happiness? Then he said, that is why it is happiness. So, if there is a person to experience, the person is impermanent. If the one experiences it, the experience is impermanent. This is where the Buddha said, itta apoja tejo, itta apoja pati tejo vayo nagati techa namancha rupancha asesang uparujjati. Itta apoja patavi here, patavi apo tejo vayo, 4 elements, do not exist. Itta namancha rupancha here, mentality and materiality. Mentality means contact, feeling, perception, conditional formations, and attention do not exist. And also consciousness also do not exist. Rupa, formations or forms do not exist. They are asesang. Asesa means, as I mentioned this morning, without remainder. Remember this morning I mentioned asesa viraga nirodho, chago patnisaggo mukti analayo, when we talk about the dependent, what you call the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. Tassayeva tannaya asesa viraga nirodho, chago mukto patnisaggo. That very same desire, without remainder, ceasing. And that is exactly what Nibbana is. Yeah, your question?
Yes, we were talking about anatta is for individual. So afterwards you explain it to her. The whole thing, is it like what I hear usually called sunyata, like everything empty? Because
the word sunyata refers specifically on the absence of self. It is used only for absence of self, sunyata. And attainment of liberation also has 3 what we call entries, doorways. Animitta, appanihita, sunyata. That is directly related to greed, hatred and delusion. So when the delusion of self is totally annihilated, to use your term, is called sunyata. Sunyata means empty of self. Okay? There's one more hand. Yes. Two. Huh?
The pronunciation of your last name. How do you pronounce your last name?
My last name is a long name, so people don't want to have this tongue twisted. They shorten it as G. That is the first letter of my last name. Last name is Gunaratana. Gunaratana. And you have a question? I cannot hear you really. Could you speak up?
Sunyata was one of the 3 entries for liberation. What were the other 3?
Animitta, appanihita. Animitta, A-N-I-M-I-T-T-A, Animitta. Appanihita, A-P-P-A-N-I-H-I-T-A, Appanihita. Sunyata, S-U-N-N-A-T-A. Yeah.
Is one of them called like no sign or something like that?
No sign is animitta. No sign of greed is animitta. Actually, animitta means no sign of hatred. Appanihita means no sign of greed. Sunyata is no sign of self.
Can we say that it is a time, a state, when we do not make any karma? This Nibbanic state is a state when we do not make any karma.
Nibbana state. Her question is, can we say Nibbana is a state where you do not commit karma? Actually, when you attain arahanthood, your thoughts, words, deeds would not become a karma. Not committing karma is a state of attaining arahanthood. Arahanthood is the state where you realize Nibbana. It is perhaps not appropriate to say Nibbana is a state where you do not commit karma, but it is quite true to say that when you attain enlightenment, arahanthood, you do not commit karma, or your thoughts, words, deeds do not become a karma. Yeah. Yes.
Can a person who is not enlightened actually experience non-self?
Person who has not attained enlightenment, they normally believes that there is a self. Surely.
So are we, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So are we trying to understand something before we experience it?
Actually, it is very good that we start with theoretical understanding, and then we can improve our understanding. Then we understand it as from intellectual level. Understanding something in intellectual level is like seeing water in a deep desert well. You remember, I think I mentioned this in the past also. Suppose you are traveling in a desert, suddenly you come across a deep well. You are very thirsty, you stick your head into the well, and at the very deep bottom, at the very bottom of the well, there is water. You know for sure that it is water, but it will not quench your thirst. Your hand is not long enough. You don't have a rope, bucket or ladder to reach the water. But you understood, you saw for sure that there is water. Intellectual understanding of the truth is exactly like that. You know intellectually that it is true. But until you realize it, it will not be yours. To realize it, we have to follow the Noble Eightfold Path. When we follow the Noble Eightfold Path, what we have intellectually understood can be experientially realized. It is just like tasting water by drinking. So the first thing is, theoretically we must understand Dhammang sunati sutta dhammang dhareti dhatanang arthanang upaparikkati. You listen to Dhamma, memorize, and then chew the cud. you know, chewing cud, what you have memorized, to keep pondering over that, thinking about it, and then panyaya suppatividdha. After that, through wisdom, you penetrate it. Then you realize the truth. Yeah. Yeah?
Can you reach that state of selflessness during meditation?
Actually, that's a very good question. That's a very, very pertinent question. When we meditate, every moment we see impermanent, we experience selflessness. It's a very beautiful moment, because the mind is trying to reach something to hold. Before the mind reaches the object, it is gone. It is gone. That is why in Anapanasati Sutta, at the end, the last tetrad, Buddha said, Aniccanupassi virati, viraganupassi asasisamiti padanati, viraganupassi passisam, patinisagganupassi, nirodhanupassi asisami sikati, nirodhanupassi passisami sikati, patinisagganupassi asisami sikati, patinisagganupassi passisami sikati. That means when you see impermanence, you breathe in seeing impermanence, you see impermanence in your mind. You are not uttering it in words, because the sound can block the direct awareness. So then you can see what is impermanent is ceasing. Every impermanent thing is cease to exist. Every impermanent thing ceases to exist. And then you see that, then aniccanupassi, then you do not, when you see impermanence, actually before you see the cessation, the mind sees that it cannot hold on to it. So mind let it go. When the mind lets it go, then that particular thing ceases to exist, it stops. When you see that, you will see, you let it go, that is called abandoning, patinisagga. When we see this whole process, you will see there is nothing to hold on to it. That is why you see selflessness more directly in meditation. Yes?
This is a different subject, but this is not just in relation to the turning of the wheel of Dhamma. We draw specific attention to these two extremes should not be followed by one who has no force to involve in life, and from indulgence to walk or follower and the other. But what does it say to those who are involved in life, especially to the lay people? Is there an advice to lay people that way?
I see. You see, for lay people, even the Noble Eightfold Path, the Noble Eightfold Path actually designed for lay people. It is particularly designed for lay people. For example, there is a right understanding, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. None of them is particularly designed for the monastics. Even Abrahmacharya is not in there. That is, celibacy is not there. Vikala Bhojana is not there. Not eating after noon is not there. These are monastic rules. These are in addition to these Noble Eightfold steps. So the Noble Eightfold Path is typically designed for people who can observe 5 precepts. They can observe, they can do a job, they can marry, have children, they can have household life, business and so forth. Right livelihood particularly is included there for lay people to do a job, a right, honest, sincere job without causing any harm to their ethical, moral conduct. So the whole teaching basically is for lay people. Yes. I think, friends, I am also tired a little bit, so we should stop here. And thank you very much for your participation. And you asked very, very beautiful, very interesting questions. And keep up with that. And in the evening we have another session of questions and answers. Okay? He said, it is peace. Who experienced the peace? He said, nobody experienced peace. It is inexperiential, avedita sukha. Then he asked, if it is not avedita sukha, how can that be happiness? Then he said, that is why it is happiness. So, if there is a person to experience, the person is impermanent. If the one experiences it, the experience is impermanent. This is where the Buddha said, itta apoja tejo, itta apoja pativi tejo vayo nagati techa namancha rupancha asesang uparujjati. Itta apoja pativi here, pativi apo tejo vayo, 4 elements, do not exist. Itta namancha rupancha here, mentality and materiality. Mentality means contact, feeling, perception, conditional formations, and attention do not exist. And also consciousness do not exist.